The truth doesn't hurt. The lies do. Truth feels good.
Mm.
Truth is awesome. Truth is like, oh my God, I'm back. Thank God. And when you're there and you're like, I'm not bad. I didn't fuck up. I'm not despicable. I'm not irresponsible. I'm not whatever label that I've put on myself or have adopted from other people telling me. I get to be human.
Welcome to the Well Worship Man podcast, where men come to build unshakable presence, become the rock in their relationships, and build a legacy that lasts beyond their years. Here, we explore the path to mature masculinity through humble power, daily devotion, and unwavering integrity.
Thanks, baby. Today we have a guest on the show. Chris Sawey is an off-grid architect, builder, poet, educator, and wilderness guide splitting his time between Austin and Alaska. He is the founder of Men's Alaska Project, a nonprofit dedicated to helping dad-deprived men reconnect with purpose, resilience, and the natural world. Drawing from a background in wilderness therapy, outdoor education, construction, and men's work, Chris creates immersive experiences that blend adventure, practical skills, personal growth, and rites of passage for the modern man. When he's not guiding wilderness trips, Chris lives off-grid writing poetry in Alaska, where he has spent the last several years developing his fully off-grid private island, a wilderness sanctuary designed to help people slow down, reconnect, and remember what matters most. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. So excited.
Yeah, us too. So we're just chatting a little bit before diving in, and you shared that you'd gone into town this morning, but prior to that, you hadn't seen another human for a week and a half. So tell us what your current setting is like and what you're up to.
Yeah, well, in this very, very moment, I'm looking out my window. I got the White Mountains. I live on a beautiful river. The weather is gorgeous. I'm kind of wishing I would have brought the camera and the computer outside. This is the most I'm going to be spending inside, I think, today. So, no, I'm super grateful for this beautiful, magical place. I get to be, and yeah, just feeling really in that frequency of gratitude today. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Beautiful. Um, those of us that are lucky enough to hear a call, once we start on that path, we know it seems often like there's not another choice when it's an authentic call. And your call has led you to live off grid, away from humans, a lot of the time reconnected to nature. So talk to us about hearing that initial call and what that experience was like for you.
It's been almost, what, 5 years since I stood out. I sat on the shore of that river and heard it. Um, a little context to where I was at the time. I was living in Austin. I had a residential remodeling company. Before that, I was doing camper renovations. Before that, I was um, had a little show on HGTV, and I was honestly like burnt out. It was COVID, so it was like 2020. The world was confused and afraid and trying to project all of their fears onto me. And I didn't know what to do with that. Uh, and I think Spirit knew that I needed something. It knew I needed rest in a new way. It knew I needed adventure. And I found myself in Alaska on a bit of a whim. Uh, my brother, so I grew up in foster care, and a brother that I grew up with was texting me. And we were kind of chatting. It had been to be the 2-year anniversary of our brother Caleb's suicide. And we were just kind of checking in. And I was like, what are you up to? And he had moved out to Alaska and was looking at land. Now, this is a big deal for him because he's always been a bit of a rebel. So the fact that he was even considering buying land and like going to the bank I was like, wait, what? What? What's happening? And we got to chatting and he was sending me some pictures. And what was so interesting about what he was sharing is I had had a what I call like a vision about 2 weeks prior of this little cabin in the middle of the woods. Now I thought when I had it, so kind of a daydream. I thought when I had it, I was like, "Oh, that's cool. That sounds nice later in life when I retire, I'll have something like that." And it was one of those things that kinda kept revisiting in my consciousness, and I kept just like, one day," and look, to make a long story short, I found myself on a last-minute plane, and I convinced myself that I didn't have time, right? I didn't have time to go to Alaska. I was in the middle of a project, and I got work to do and money to make and blah, 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 blah. And I think Spirit just had different plans, and I went to go look at flights, and I was like, "There's no way I'm gonna spend, $1,000 on a 3-day flight to Alaska. Nope." And that night, I could not sleep. I usually go to bed around 10. It was like 11, then 12, then 1, then 2. That's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I finally just go, "Fine, I'll do it." And so I booked it, went right to sleep, found myself in Alaska. How it is. And, yeah, me and my brother were just kind of searching, and looking at land, and I thought I was there for him, and it turns out that we kinda landed on this piece of property, and it's the second I stepped foot on the land, my whole body lit up. Now, it had been probably several years since I had felt that familiarity,
Mm,
when I felt that vibration in my body, where it's like I got excited for no reason whatsoever, and my like, I could feel it in my forearms and in my fingertips, and it's kinda going up to my head, and I always know that when that happens to pay attention. So for the next several days, um, me and Chad, which is his name, we we kinda walked around and explored, and we found ourselves just kinda sitting, chatting, camp chairs, made a little fire, and we were discussing Caleb, and we were discussing life and living in children's homes, and a lot of our brothers had either been shot and killed in gangs, in prison. I
mm,
mean, it's just a crazy, crazy story of all these brothers that I've lived with that just kinda didn't quite make it, and we kinda
mm,
sat there and was like, "Why us?" I think it was him that asked the question, like, Why us? Why are we the ones that, quote, unquote, "made it?" Um, and the answer to that question was like, I think we're supposed to do something with it, Chad." And that kinda we both went to bed that night kinda permeating on that idea. I woke up the next morning, he was still asleep, and I kinda got out of my accommodations and went down to the river, and I just sat. And I'm praying as I do, and I'm asking questions like, "What am I supposed to do? What is this all for?" Like, I can't imagine myself being in the remodeling industry much longer. I'm kind of burnt out. What's next? And I remember seeing a beaver. The water was glass, right? The trees were reflecting against the early morning light. There was a fog kind of rolling in. The sun was kind of peeping up in between the trees. It was just like really pristine, cold environment. And this little beaver had kind of just made its way and created a little channel. And I just watched, sat there in silence. And as he came across the river, he did a couple of circles. He was kind of scoping me out a little bit, and we were making eye contact the whole time, and I'm thinking to myself, like, "What are you doing?" And he came up, did a couple more circles, came up right next to me, and I swear, without breaking eye contact, he just started making me this little I say he was making me, but he was making, like a little what I call a mud pie. It was like all of the extra pollen and grass and mud, and he kind of just with his little bitty T-Rex hands was sitting there, and he just made me this little mound, and I kinda looked at it, looked at him, and I was like, what is that?" And he jumps back into the water, and he slams his tail onto the water, makes this big splash, And up until that moment, that water was completely still. But when he slapped his tail, that ripple just traveled. And I watched probably for what felt like forever, this ripple just kind of go downstream. And I'm in my head, I'm asking like, beaver, what is a beaver? What am I? Beavers are builders. Okay, what am I supposed to build? And boom, spirit just kind of came over my body and I felt it wasn't an audible voice. It wasn't a, coming from the clouds. It was just an internal voice that said, what you are going to build here, referring to the ripple, is going to do the same.
Hmm.
And in that moment, I was like, I'm in. I don't know what we're doing, but I'm in.
Mhm. Hmm.
And I still remember it because it was at the same time scary and exciting and scary because I really just did not know what on earth I was supposed to be doing, but I did know that this land that I was on was going to be not owned. I wasn't going to own it, but I was going to steward it. And I ended up getting a couple more downloads while I was there and got back on the plane and was in this like trying to like problem solving business mind mode. I was like, okay, what's the business plan here? What are we gonna do? How do I monetize this into something? My whole brain, went a whole different direction. And uh to make a long story short, there's several other stories in between, but I often tell people that this has been one of my greatest adventures where I don't actually get to see. It's like I've been given all of these puzzle pieces, but I don't get to see the box.
Hmm.
And so the last 5 years of my life have been just collecting the puzzle pieces and trying to figure out where they fit and what does this have to do with this? And it has been for someone who works in as an architect and sees everything visually and likes to map everything out and using 3D design software and CAD software to like spec out every detail before we go into build. This was a completely different way of doing things.
Mhm.
And to trust, I call it the surrender experience, where I am just at the whims of what Spirit's asking me to do. But what has transpired and what has unfolded in the last 5 years is truly a trust fall. It's been I've been led to some of the craziest places. I am constantly in awe of what can happen without my control, without me needing to plan it, without needing to, organize it, and it really has been one of the greatest adventures I think I've ever been on, and now I know it's possible. It seems like
Mhm.
I feel like the most special human in the world, but at the same time, like, I'm not special. It's this
Mhm.
weird paradox I think the whole game likes to show us, and so, yeah, that's the story, in a nutshell of kinda what I'm doing here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's such a beautiful demonstration of that call, and what really struck me when you were talking is your explanation of what it felt like in your
Mhm,
body. There is a lot of talk often about a woman's intuition, but it's really all humans have this like sixth sense to listen and to hear and to be guided by spirit. And until you have an experience or focus your intention on hearing what that feels like, it's sort of hard to describe.
mhm,
But you describing it like as a physical sensation, I think is really supportive. It probably feels a little different in everyone's body, but there is definitely like a clear physical, like weighted sensation that also feels light, where it's just like, okay, this is the truth now. And it
yeah,
is like a choice, not a choice, like we say, where, you could have totally ignored it and it would have probably just circled back on repeat like flying to Alaska did.
yeah,
But the saying yes is such a powerful process. And my question for you now is, okay, once you got that yes, then there are challenges during this game. You're describing it now as like this art of curiosity, which is really great. Like the more people can be curious about, I always say like, what's spirit going to bring me today? Like, okay, I guess spirit just wants me to feel joyful and silly today, or maybe I need to feel like a little bit lower energy because of what's going to transpire. But that curiosity is key. And yet, when there's challenges, sometimes we lose our anchor into that curiosity. So I'm wondering, what it's been like to stay anchored into this vision, and maybe if there are any specific challenges that felt like, the hardest points to actually stay centered, or what are the tools that you use?
Yeah, that's so well said. It kind of sounds like you're on your own mission, your own adventure. Like
For
you know
sure.
something about this.
We're picking up some puzzle pieces.
Uh, um, I think the biggest thing for me is I often say like the pain is like you can't escape it, but suffering is absolutely optional.
Mm,
And I think the willingness to be interrupted has been my
mm.
greatest lesson.
Mm.
Um, the my willingness to be interrupted, uh, because I think I'm doing something, and then Spirit's like, "Pivot!" And I suffered for the first couple years of that.
Mm,
I get so fixated, and I don't know if this is a man thing or just a me thing, but I like having my targets. I like having my set a goal and hit it. And I think in the greatest lesson I've learned in all of this is like to stay faithful but unattached.
mm,
And in terms of challenges, I mean, I don't know for at least for me, building a cabin on an island in the middle of a river, having to transport, being an hour and a half away from town, getting supplies, having to put it on a boat, transporting it over, having to build solo, putting on roofing, using my foot, to hold the roof while I'm upside down and putting screws in my mouth. I mean, I can list thousands of them, um, of challenges. But at the same time, I guess I rest in the knowing that life isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. And as cliche as that is, when I anchor to that idea, suffering really, I think, is a choice. And I'm really getting good. I've got to be careful here. I don't want to be humbled. I like to think that I'm getting really good at recognizing it. And shifting quickly. Um and staying anchored to that idea, because it's very easy to be a victim of circumstance, right? To be so affected by, what I think is supposed to happen, right? There is what is, and then there's my resistance to what is.
mm,
And so if I can get on the right side of what is, I find that things are a little bit smoother.
mm.
Um, and that's hard because your boy likes having his preferences.
I think
I
we
like
all do.
I like my preferences. I just like, things being a certain way. But yeah, 93 days it took me to build this cabin that first summer, and I've been back, and I think the challenges are new every time,
Mhm,
but that's the fun. And I
mhm,
think that's the idea is, uh, how fun can I make this?
mhm.
Mm.
How fun can this be? It's really a mindset thing.
Um, when you are noticing that attachment or the resistance, or like spirits directing you in another way, I like the visual of like get good at being interrupted. Both of us are like, oh, that's a code, but different people have different ways that they respond. Someone might go into victimhood or might go into defensiveness, or like, I'm curious, how do you notice you have become the person who's resisting?
Anger. Oh, yeah, frustration.
Mhm.
I'm gonna just be vulnerable with you. I have an ego. Never
Shocking.
mind. Shocking. I have an ego that loves to convince me that everybody else is idiots. um, and I have learned it to be a secret little sneaky way that my ego likes to find fuel to kind of feed the fire of resistance. If I can
Mm.
create, and I've caught this, my ego will create that separation. If
Mm.
I can convince, if it can convince me that everybody else is idiots, therefore I am superior. Therefore I am whatever. That in itself, creating that initial hierarchy is actually what creates the suffering, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Because that's the moment that separation is created. That's the moment where distance is then created, and now there's a gap. And when there's a gap, there is opportunity for that resistance, where that proverbial maybe window lets in that draft. And yeah, and so what I notice in terms of when I'm in that resistance is I'll start to get upset. I'll start to get angry. I'll start to get frustrated or annoyed. There's different scales, right? It starts out as like a pet peeve, and then annoyance, and then frustration, and then anger, and then rage. there's a whole there's a whole thing. And the sooner I can catch it, um, the better. Yeah, but that's easier said than done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I really resonate with you a lot, and also the willingness to be interrupted. I like to run straight and fast too.
Hmm.
And if somebody
Hmm.
interrupts me to say, "Hey, look at this little slug crawling on the ground," I'm irritated because I've got my target, right? Like, what are you stopping me for? This is silly.
Uh-huh.
And then, there's like this process of like I am my irritation or I am my anger. And then there's like, okay, I'm actually aware of my anger and I'm aware that it's pretty silly that I would just run by this snail. That's like a miracle of nature, right? And
Yeah.
then I can start to understand my error. But I'm curious for you, you mentioned catching it as soon as possible is the best thing. But when you realize that there is something amiss, that you are separating yourself, how do you bring yourself back into integrity?
Well, integrity. You just casually throw that word on the table. Okay, great. First off, I want to clear up the misconception that I think that word has. So
Mm.
I used to think that integrity it was taught to me as doing the right thing when no one was looking.
Right.
Hmm.
That was how it was taught.
Yeah.
And I've struggled with that definition because I used to think being out of integrity, and I'm going to do my best to come back to your question, but that word. Okay.
Right.
Um, I used to think that being out of integrity meant doing the wrong thing when nobody was looking.
Mhm.
And that, I think, meant I've translated that in my mind that almost like there's a deception,
Mhm.
right, to that. And for me, that's not really what integrity is. Integrity is defined as integrous, coming back into wholeness. And so that's how I interpret your question is
Yeah.
how am I come back into wholeness in that moment? And the greatest tactic and the hardest anchor for me is remembering that I am not separate.
Mhm.
I'm not separate from any of it, and it's impossible for me to be. And if I can anchor to that, and then I don't just say I don't just say that as like an affirmation. If I can find it in the body and remember,
Mhm.
I am just God experiencing itself, and that this is just here to often reveal my inner fragility, right? To show me where I'm out of integrity. a lot of the times that's what it is. It's just to reveal where there is a crack in the foundation, or maybe my ego's doing that thing where I need to be humbled a little bit. And, if I claim that I am a bridge that can hold 2,000 pounds, it's almost like spirit goes, oh yeah, how about this? Give me a little, give me a little wiggle just so that I can see maybe where I'm not exactly as strong as I think I am, or maybe um, as integrous as I say I am.
Mhm.
And it's if I can get there, and it feels good. Let me be very clear. It feels very good sometimes to complain and play the victim. I try not to give myself more than 2 minutes. Like just let them go. Just complain, but come right back. Because I've also learned that if I don't do that,
Mhm.
I don't express. It gets lodged in
Mm.
the body a little bit. It comes out sideways somewhere else. And it can go unchecked. So I guess that's the best way I know how to answer that question. And by no means am I perfect at this. It's just something that
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
think a complaint frenzy is a great practice. Sometimes I'll hit one in the car. It's just like 2 minutes of my laundry list of everything that's going wrong, and then I feel so
yeah,
much better afterwards, and those things feel like they're less wrong,
yeah,
some of them actually don't even matter at all.
Mhm.
So I think, there's kind of this an opposing perspective, like a stoic perspective of don't complain at all. And it's like, but like you said, if we don't acknowledge what's real, it gets lodged. And actually, the process of acknowledging what's real can be a fairly short and easy one without repercussions. There's actually some
yeah,
good stuff on the other side.
Mm. Yeah.
100%.
We're in process of like making kind of an ecosystem for people to learn various things. And while I was making some of the stuff for the course that we're offering this summer, this teaching came through of like, when a baby is inside the mother, the baby is not separate. Like the mother will literally take nourishment from its own bones, from her own bones to nourish the baby. And the parallel of that, of mother nature, like we're not separate, we're part of, like the mother always provides. And at a similar time I was reading a version of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's talking about, everything is Krishna, everything is God. And so this this separation thing that all of our egos like to do, or like someone's inconveniencing us, or like I thought my day was going to go this way and now I have like 6 hours of a problem to solve, and
Uh-huh.
yet it's like, but what if this is actually getting me back into my center? Like I didn't even know that I wasn't supposed to be doing that thing that day, but there was an interruption that was actually a redirection.
Mhm.
And yeah, actually feeling it in your body is a completely different thing. This goes across the board for all emotions, but, like, affirmations are good, and unless you're, like, really feeling the truth of it in your body, the truth that we are just, like, a part of the energy moving through Earth and not the only thing or the center or separate from it, it really changes things. And I imagine as you've spent time on the land out there, that has sunk into your body a bit more deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I thank you for that beautiful teaching around the mother. I did not know that with the bones. That's very
Mhm,
cool. Yeah, it's a frequency, right? Like it's a choice. The idea like I choose anger as a response. The
mm,
frequency is there. It's just about finding the right, turning the knobs to get there. And sometimes
mhm.
it's really hard, especially if you, like me, like to sulk a little bit and you're a victimhood. But you know who was interrupted? Just real quick. You know who was interrupted? I find
Mm.
was Jesus. I read a lot of times, and it's been a long time since I grew up in the church, but so I
Mm,
grew up on
me
a lot
too.
of these stories, and it's been kind of fun to revisit in a new lens and a new context. But a lot of times I see little parables and stories. It often says that on his way to wherever he was met
Yeah.
by a on his way to he was, and you're like, oh, you get it. You totally know what I'm talking about, Jay. I get it. And I think that that's funny. And the greatest healing
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
some of the greatest healing stories was because Jesus was interrupted, and it's a subtle thing I don't think we catch all the times, but once I caught that, I'm like, "Okay,
Wow.
all right, I can
I
Yeah.
do it."
love that.
That's really landing for me. Yeah, it's like that people weren't making appointments with Jesus. He wasn't like he wasn't like planning to make house calls. You know, he was just like living in the flow. Like what is the
Mhm.
Father asking of me today? Right. And when those interruptions came, he's not like, no, 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 I was already on my way to like do this. I can't do that. It's like,
Sorry,
no, that becomes the thing now. That's
yeah.
what's been presented in
Mhm,
life. There must be something there, an opportunity to serve or learn or grow.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love that.
mhm, yeah. Hey, we didn't sign up for his iCal, yeah.
No.
Get on the app.
Get on the wait list for Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
On that note, one of the things that I am often thinking about is like, okay, but how do we tell the difference between a redirection and like a side quest that we're choosing? You
Uh,
know,
uh,
because ultimately there is like one singular optimal way that we could be going, and there's one source, and of course there's a lot of variability in the way that we move through our days. There's this balance between like integrity and compassion.
mhm,
But I think a lot of times people make excuses for either never following the flow because they're so focused,
mhm,
or making excuses around their ego that like, well, I'm just gonna go do I just feel like I wanna go do this thing now. I just feel like I wanna go do this thing now, and it's actually because 'cause they're hitting some resistance
mhm.
to whatever is being asked of them. So what's the difference between, like, I call it a side quest, like a side quest, and actually a redirection when you're on this path of a vision?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know how to answer that question. Oh, I that is so real. That is so real. I heard how to identify what is a side quest. I'm gonna try this. I'm actually gonna give this a go. I have a I have a beautiful poem that a squirrel taught me while I was out here on the land, and um, I can't do the whole poem for you, but the premise of this is this little squirrel. Uh, Squirrels are responsible for hiding or losing their nuts is pretty much the premise of this, right? And statistically, they say that squirrels have planted more trees than humans, right? And what I love about this idea is that God, source, universe planned for this,
Mhm.
right? It knew that this little squirrel was going to do
Mhm.
this, and its forgetfulness and its just squirreliness, And what I learned, and I think it's on my Instagram. It's been a long time since I wrote it, but what I learned in this is that you can't fuck it up.
Mhm.
You really can't. And side quest, main quest, just like our GPS, when we make a wrong turn, it's going to recalculate a new route.
Mhm.
And it's not so much about where we're going, as cliche as it is. It's really not so much about where we're going. It's about who we become along the way.
Mhm.
And I don't think that the universe cares about our title. I
Mhm.
don't think it cares about the number of followers that we have, right? I think it cares about how we lead. I
Mhm.
think it cares about who we become and our character. And I think those side quests that we sometimes find ourselves in, they're it's character.
Mhm.
At least that's the way I choose to view it.
Mhm.
And I really am convinced, and it's helped me a lot because when I'm in those big decisions of like, should I do this? Should I not?
Mhm.
I try very, very hard to remember that no matter what I choose, like uh, the universe is always saying yes. So like,
Mhm.
if I go this way, I'm good. If I go this way, still good. But yeah, that's what I'll say. That's how I'm gonna answer that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. I think that level of faith and trust requires integrity. You know, what you shared about, you
Exact
know,
word.
uh, whichever way I go, I'm good, right? There's a similar saying, you know, you can't miss what's meant for you. And this might get us a little deeper. There are people that make really poor decisions and end up in lives that are not how they had mapped out or how anybody would choose. You know, there are people that die in prison. There are people that die with no relationship to their kids, and
Yeah.
you know, it's like the question that none of us can answer is like, was that the life that was meant for them? And so, what's the role of, you know, your level of self awareness in your belief that you can't fuck it up? And does that apply to everybody?
I love that you brought it back to integrity. Um, and I'm thinking about what you were saying, Jessica, at the beginning around intuition.
Hmm.
I can't say for everybody, and I don't want to be that guy, but what I'll say for me is the greatest cost of being out of integrity, I believe, is intuition. I think that's the greatest cost. It's not the consequence of being out of integrity. It's what we lose access to
Mm,
when we're out of integrity. And
Mm,
so that is my ultimate motivation
mm,
because what's happening internally, and maybe you guys know this, but like that split is created.
mhm,
And as long as that split is there, we're not, it's not necessarily that we're losing um, the ability to intuit. It's just that we lose our tool. Our tool becomes not as sharp.
mhm,
And so that's when things start to become difficult to discern. And that's the greatest gift of being back, being into wholeness. I often compare it to, uh, when I do man camps out here, we go ATV riding, and I love taking the guys out on ATVs and ripping and running on the tundra. And we talk about mind, body, heart, and spirit. A lot of men today are two-wheel drive men. And it's really about coming back to become four-wheel drive men. And what happens is when we're out of alignment, we can
mm,
end up in a ditch, right? Or if we're out in the vast tundra, we can end up going in circles. And
mm,
so the idea is coming back into alignment, back into integrity. Is come back to the idea that like we just need a maintenance check. Like being out of integrity ain't bad. We just got to get an oil change, you know?
mhm,
And I think there's a lot of shame around that. So of like, oh man, I was out of integrity. I held on to that forever. Oh,
mm,
I'm out of integrity. Like I'm the worst. No, you hit a bump, you threw it out of whack, and you just go under the hood and figure it out. Change
mhm,
it up. Um, and so anyway, the point I'm making is that the greatest thing I think that we can do is find out where that is and how we define, because I think it's going to be different for everybody. But the greatest cost is being able to listen and to hear.
yeah. Yeah, the cost of being out of integrity is intuition. That's what you said.
mhm,
And for years in my life, you know, I was meditating, I was in my yoga practice, I was reading the books, da 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 da. And I just like didn't know. I wasn't receiving any guidance. I just didn't know my life purpose, my path, you know. But there was this massive area of my life where I was out of integrity and I was ignoring it. Um,
Really?
and when I brought that into integrity, the hardest decision I had to make was the decision to bring that part of my life into integrity. And I've talked about my broken engagement before on this podcast, but once I did that, oh my gosh,
mhm.
it was hard, but God started talking. I started seeing
Oh,
things that I could
snap.
explore and go.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but I
Yeah.
but I'd never heard it, you know, reduced to such a simple teaching is that the cost of being out of integrity is intuition. So I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a good way to say it. And also, there is when people start this work, and I feel like especially for some of the men that start this work, there is this story that they can't hear. Like, "Oh, like, I don't just don't hear things like that," or even for a lot of the women that do this work, there for both ends, there's a lot of confusion, and what we're talking about with, being in wholeness, it's like, well, if I'm ignoring a part of myself, then there's combating stories. That's why I'm
Mhm.
confused, but the truth is, like, singular in my
Mhm.
body, like, what is best for me, what the voice of spirit is saying to me is one thing, and I just can't, to your point, really hear it because I need a maintenance check,
Uh-huh. Mhm.
and it shame is such a big issue in accepting these places because when I feel so much shame about like, "Oh, I'm out of integrity, like I did this horrible thing and like blah blah blah," then it prevents actually the union of that. We need to feel the shame to be able to come back into wholeness. If I
Mhm.
suppress my shame, now that's another piece of me that's telling a
Mhm.
different story.
Uh-huh.
But like being able to feel it and also have this narrative of like it's not really that big of a deal. Like, it is a really big deal to feel my emotions and to feel the impact of the hurt that I cause, and also, like, once I recognize it, then I can adjust it and get the maintenance check, and onward we
Mhm.
go. There was a time when we were at a festival where the day that we had was just, like, so chaotic, and over, like, every 10 to 20 minutes, I'm like, "Oh, this happened because I did this thing. This happened because oh my gosh, I should have, like, worn this outfit instead of that." Like, just ridiculous unwinding all of the
You
ways
took
that I
it
caused these
yeah.
problems, and finally, Isaac looked at me and he was like, "Hey, it's done." Like, we recognized that we weren't feeling, like, totally in connection, and now all we have to do is feel in connection again, and that's
Mhm.
it. And it's a really beautiful demonstration of the way that different
Uh-huh.
energies work, but it also is true, like, there's ways that everyone steps a little bit out of alignment with themselves every day if only they would notice the subtlety of it,
Yeah.
and that is the whole thing that we're doing in life is noticing more and more subtlety.
Totally. Yeah, well said. Well said. I would love just to yeah, take away the stigma that is, like, out of integrity. Like, it's
Mhm,
been used to weaponize, "You're out of
mhm,
integrity." It's used with this, like, this
mm,
sword, and, man, I was just changing the oil on the ATV, and I used to think here's a fun
mm,
little metaphor. I used to think like, having black oil was bad. Like,
mm,
"Oh, no, I've let my oil run black."
hmm,
The black oil proves that it worked. The
mm,
black oil is actually shows
mm,
that it did its job
hmm,
because it's the thing and if we're not careful, the very thing that's designed to protect the engine can be the thing that destroys the engine if we're not careful because the
mhm,
machine will still run on black oil.
hmm,
But the maintenance check is kind of the oil change is the necessary component. And so instead of looking at even when we like go out of alignment, it's like that happens. That is proof and evidence that we've been on the road.
mhm,
We've been doing our work. And so it's inevitable. And so like if I could just instill one thing is like being out of integrity is inevitable, but the work is coming back. The
mhm,
work is coming back into integrity to feel the truth because the truth doesn't hurt. The lies do.
mhm,
Truth feels good.
mm,
Truth is awesome. Truth is like, "Oh my god,
Mhm.
I'm back. Thank God." And when you're there and you're like, "I'm not bad. I didn't fuck up.
mhm,
I'm not despicable. I'm not irresponsible. I'm not whatever label that I've put on myself or have adopted from other people telling me. I get to be I get to just be human." I think
mhm,
Peter Crone has the quote, like, "The hardest part about being human is being human."
Mhm.
Um, and the problem with being human is we're trying so hard not to be,
Yeah,
yeah.
right? It's
yeah,
like, come on.
yeah.
Anyway,
And part of being human is straying and returning, coming out of integrity and returning. And I think a really important element of that we haven't talked about is community, is
Mm,
brotherhood, is
yeah.
having when I step out of integrity, having people around me that can remind me who I am,
Mm.
and that can also remind me that I am loved and lovable, and from that place, it's like, "Oh, okay. I'm
Oh,
actually, like, ready to get back into integrity. I don't have
yeah.
to, like, wallow over here," and so, I think that's a really important piece of it is having people around you who operate in this way as well.
Yeah. Great. Community.
Yeah. I wanna shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the adventurous and fun, but also deep work that you're doing in Alaska with men. And you mentioned man camp, and so there's this you had this vision of the cabin. You saw
Mm.
this beaver slap its tail and saw the ripple impact, and at that time it was just you. And now it's become really a path of service and bringing other men up into the wilderness to experience some of the gifts that wilderness has shared with you and maybe ones that it hasn't. Maybe they get their own. So talk to us about Men's Alaska Project and Man Camp.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this first. It's not just, it's so cool in this adventure that I'm on because I've tried labeling it so many times, right? Like, oh, it's going to be a summer camp. It's going to be a healing center. It's going to be a retreat center. And I keep trying to put it in a box, I can't keep trying to like name it, brand it. And we ended up going with Men's Alaska Project, or the acronym MAP, because I think a map. Here's why: because a map will never tell you where to go. It will, however, tell you how to walk the terrain. And I don't resonate with being a coach or any of that. If anything, I call myself a guide, and that's just because I take people to places they would otherwise maybe not go themselves. And I try to create as pure of a experience as possible, right? When we're hiking up a mountain, I'm not the guy up front. I'm trying to be the guy in the back so that you can have that experience as if you're following your own compass. You're following your own path. Because if I've learned anything about being out here, is that the wilderness, at least for me, is one of the purest frequencies that I found, and like true wilderness, not national park wilderness, although it's beautiful and great. But I'm talking like unadulterated, no Wi-Fi, no cell signal, no interruption other than whatever spirit has for you. Uh, because everything out here is it's a greater teaching, a greater metaphor, a greater it's pure. It's pure. And the wilderness is a place of testing, of challenge, of divine encounters, of renewal. It's my favorite place to be. And so what I get to do, I love that I get to do this, is I get to take people out here, touch it, taste it, experience it. Man Camp was one of those things where I get guys to come out, 10 of us, where we adventure in the wild, and we kayak wild rivers, and we climb mountains, and we shoot each other with airsoft guns. That's fun. We play Protect the Island, and all the different games that we play. But at the end of the day, it's play, helping men remember that we're just kids, taking life a little too seriously sometimes, and we're God's kids, and we get to yeah, we get to enjoy life. And when we're in that frequency of play, we start to remember a little bit more like, oh yeah. Because uh it's not something, I mean, we don't have to go necessarily find something. It's more of a remembering,
Mhm.
right? And one of the things we say is that every man has a question, and there's a reason why it's called a quest, because it's a question. Um, and we get to uncover what that quest is, and adventure is a great vehicle to do it. Play is a great vehicle to do it, and I don't just do it with men. I do it with young men stepping into manhood. We have co-ed experiences out here, but it is just this island has just become like essentially a playground, a training ground on sacred ground, as we say. So there's a little synopsis.
Yeah. Yeah. So much of men's work, even that phrase, it's work. It's gonna be hard. We're gonna have to like go deep and excavate all the darkness that's inside
Yeah,
of us.
shadow. Yeah.
Right. And that certainly can bear fruit. But you have like a totally different perspective, right? It's first it's a playground, right? It's also training ground and it's also sacred ground, but it's a playground. So what is it about a playground that allows an opportunity for men to return to what's real for them?
A little kid at its essence is already free.
Hmm.
It's already free, especially if the child is well protected and feels safe. And, you know, a lot of men, at least what I see in the world, is there's a lot of men out there that you ask them what they want, and they may say the money, they may say this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And if you keep delayering it, they'll say freedom. I just want freedom. And what I like to say is, and I think a lot of people find out here and they touch and taste in their bodies, Jessica, is that they already are free.
Hmm.
Freedom isn't something that you get. Freedom is something that you are. Same with power. Freedom isn't something that you have. Freedom is something that or power isn't something that you have. Power is something that you are. And thank you. Amen. Uh, yeah. And that's it. That's it. And we can talk about it all day long. We can sit around and I could give a talk and we could podcast about it all day long. But when you're here and you're tasting it and you're touching it, you go, oh, oh yeah, duh. And because we're human, we forget. And it's so funny because the thing that is always available and has been always available is nature.
Hmm.
Wilderness is a little bit more scarce these days. I mean, maybe not scarce, that's the wrong word, but a little harder to get to. Uh, less convenient, dare I say. But I think the reason it's so important is because I care. I give people a map to their own driveway.
Hmm.
I help people realize that the thing that they're looking for is themselves. And we just get into the frequency of play and we get into the essence of our little boys and little girls. And that's who remembers. And if I can do that, I've done my job. Everything else is just bonus.
Mhm. Um, Not everyone is ready to come to Alaska to play in the wilderness. So how do like people listening to this podcast start accessing some of that right now?
Well, first off, ready isn't a feeling, ready is a decision.
That's right.
um, no, what was your question?
How do people so like coming to Alaska is like a peak experience, a retreat or a medicine journey is like a peak experience. So those are all really important. And then to our point of like humans just forget. So what can people bring into like their daily life or their sort of quote unquote regular life that reminds them of this like childlike play that reminds them that they're already free?
Yeah, curiosity is the answer to that question.
Mhm.
I curiosity is, I think, one of the most underrated things in our world. They say, you know, curiosity killed the cat. I got a poem about this. It's like, no, curiosity didn't kill the cat. Condemnation did.
Mm,
Curiosity is what gave the cat its 9 lives, I
mm,
think. And I think that it is our souls. It's like we often say that the soul knows the know why and the ego knows the know how,
mm,
and the dance that is between the two. But curiosity really is the key to it all. Um, I think chasing curiosity, and everybody's on a different journey and their curiosity is going to take them different places. I think it's inevitable that people find their way to nature. I think it's inevitable that they find their way back to uh, the stillness, the solitude, the silence. We live in a world where it's really distracting. There's a lot of messages right now, a lot of things pulling us away intentionally to keep us from our power, to outsource it, to make us believe that it's outside of us. And it will continue to do that. And some of us need to indulge in it a lot more than others. Some of us need to get to the end of that track to feel like, oh, I got it. Some people need to get to the top of the ladder to realize that the ladder was against the wrong wall. Um, some people can get halfway up and be like, nah, I'm going back down. This ain't working. The view from here sucks. I'm not going to keep going. And so, I think it can look different for everybody, but at the end of the day, if we can get back to what makes us the most curious, makes us come alive, for me, it's nature. For me, it's being out in the wild. For me, it's finding ways to explore the planet and watching it, have its effect on my character. I think the best part. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the prerequisite for curiosity is humility. We have to be willing to admit that we don't know to then become curious. If I already know everything, if I already think I know everything about everything, then there's no reason for me to be curious. And also I hear along with curiosity is this element of the beginner's mind of being willing to be a beginner at something, to be clumsy and unfamiliar with something. And that also like actually kids don't care about that at all. Kids don't care about feeling like a beginner at all.
No,
There's no
no,
ego around
no,
that. So it's
no.
like that's a return to that childlike state.
Yeah,
Uh, Yeah.
great.
So I sort of just asked you this in one way, but at the end of all of our podcasts, we ask two questions. One
Wait,
of
it's the end? I'm not ready for it to be over.
what else would you like to share?
No, 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 I'm kidding.
So one of our intentions for this podcast is like, free access to real change. So one of the things you just said is nature. Just like go in nature. It's actually simple.
Mm.
But if there is one other kind of like thing that you would recommend
Mm.
people doing to create change, like tangible change through action, what might that be?
Book a flight to Alaska.
Yeah, is this my plug? Is that what you're telling me? Uh, no. Man, okay. Change. I'm tempted to like play the who said anything needs changing. I'm
Mm.
tempted to play that card. um nah, I think the greatest thing that one can do for oneself is if nature isn't the answer, it's underrated, but getting still, getting silent,
Mm.
getting in solitude. There's a reason those start with an S. Shh, you know? Um, ask deeper questions. That's it. I think
Yeah.
that's it. Uh, and just listen. I'm just convinced that we all have the compass and we all have the map, and if we spend our lives trying to chase the next thing, we're just gonna keep missing it. We're gonna keep going around in circles, and I think that's the beautiful paradox of it all.
Mhm.
I think that's the beautiful game of it all, and I know that's probably not the answer that somebody's looking for because they're probably looking for those. Give me 3 steps.
That ain't it.
Nah, dude. Nah.
Something that I'll add to that answer about more silence and stillness and curiosity is like stay a little longer than you want to. Like people will always have like, okay, I did it. Like that was like the first impulse to get up is usually the first sign that you're about to hit something. So stay longer, ask one or two more questions, stay past that initial impulse because that's usually like a desire to avoid the gift that's about to come.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's great. That's actually really good. That's the best answer, I think. Listen, whatever I said, ignore that.
Uh,
Teamwork.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so true. The amount of times, and this is a great thing, a little side piece on the nervous system. I think what I had
Mhm.
to learn for me is that I would sit there, right? And I'd go into okay, I'm going to do my little, right? And I would sit thinking that this was like the prerequisite to getting the download.
Mhm.
And sometimes it would come, sometimes it wouldn't. But oftentimes when it did, my first instinct was to be like, got it, got it.
Mhm.
Say less. I know what to do. And then get out of there thinking like, and I could just imagine like if it was truly like a conversation with my higher self, the other version of me would be like, oh my God, can't even handle it. I can't even handle it. I just started. And like sitting down and there's more. And that's
Mhm.
the beautiful thing is if you can find that frequency, to your point, Jessica, if you can find that frequency where you're connected and those
Mhm.
answers are coming, stay in it.
Mhm.
That's the sweet spot. You can write it down, you can act, you can do later.
Mhm.
But
mhm,
if you're in that frequency, oh baby, stay in it as best you can. And the nervous system may not be able to hold it because it's exciting. It's
Mhm.
fun. It's when you feel like you got the answers to your questions, you can't help but move.
Mhm.
Uh, but the practice is, yeah, learning to hold. We teach that when we're shooting bow and arrows.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to be able to draw it back and shoot and hit the target. It's another thing to sit and hold until
Hmm.
that animal becomes broadside. Because seeing an animal is one thing, holding until it turns is something else entirely. And
Hmm.
mm,
there's a lot I could say on that, but apparently we're out of time, so
yeah. There's a lot there of being able to hold excitement, of holding heightened states of energy, of holding tension. It's like that's like one of the biggest skills that everybody needs to develop. But if we're talking masculine, feminine, it's a masculine type of skill, I think.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and I love your analogy to the bow. I loved your analogy earlier with alignment and the
Yeah.
axles of the ATVs, and it's like I can feel these downloads coming through in the language of wilderness, and that being what you get to share, and it's just like more. Yeah, it's just like very clear to me that you are. It was before we even had this conversation, but that your feet are where they're meant to be.
Mm, yeah, thanks, guys. I
Yeah.
appreciate that information. Feels good to know that somebody
Yeah.
else knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last question that we ask is, we're trying to give more men like you a spotlight. So who's another one or two guys in your life that are really leading with integrity and being of service and seeking to be in connection with that higher source?
For you to interview.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Or for our audience to look to.
I got it. My buddy Donovan Owens is the first and only name that comes to mind. He is a man on a very similar path where he gave up his world to follow what Spirit's calling him to do, and it's just been a fun journey to watch him go through that. He's got a beautiful brotherhood he's created called Light. I don't know, brotherhood. I think he's still in the development phase of figuring out what exactly it is. But what I know to be true is that this man is dialed. He is clear.
Yeah.
Um, he calls it life is reps and
Yeah.
repetition. The reps is an acronym. Repeated excellence produces success.
Yeah.
And then the man is on a quest of self mastery and creating just a hell of a structure for other men to get really clear on who they're designed to be. And he's just an incredible man of incredible character. And I will put you guys in touch because yeah, he's transformed just by being his friend. He's elevated me as a man, as a human, and I can't speak highly enough of what he's creating in the world. So
Mm.
I'll connect you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me say this, thank you for your gifts, and thank you
Mm.
for creating space and, yeah, taking time out of your busy lives to ask beautiful questions and, bring magic to the 2 of you. I see how y'all interact. I see the love that's in your eyes, and thank you for just giving your medicine in this way.